Hi, this is Jessica with CutesyCrafts.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these really cute bead loom bracelets. There's lots of different ways to make these. I'm just going to show you using one method that I have learned. These ones have different size and different shape beads in them. Some of the beads are cubed and some of them are rounded. I've also got free patterns for you to download for each of the bracelets that you see here. You might need to adjust them to make them shorter or longer depending on how big your wrists are. But you can also make them longer by adding chains or jump rings at the end when you finish it off. So let's get started. I'm going to show you step by step how I made these cute bead loom bracelets. To make the bracelets, I am using this bead loom from Doris. There's lots of different bead looms on the market. This is just the one that I decided to use. I picked it up at my local craft store, but I'll also leave a link for it below. You'll also need several different colors of beads. These ones I did a lot of research before purchasing. I wanted to make sure that they were good quality beads. I have some that are cube and some are round. I'll leave a link to every kind of bead that I used in the description below. There's also different size seed beads. These ones are all size 8. You could go smaller or bigger if you wanted to, but it's going to change the look and feel of your bracelet. I don't recommend just going to the craft store and buying the seed beads that they have there. A lot of them are irregular in size and shape, and they don't have the best color options available. You'll also need some thread. I'm using size D Nemo nylon thread, and this thread's really good for beading. I think I used black for most of the bracelets that I'm going to be showing you here, but I got a pack of black and white just in case. I'll also leave a link for this. You'll need a beading needle as well. I'm using the one that came with my loom, so I'm not sure exactly what size it is. I'm not an expert at doing this. I'm just showing you again the way that I learned to do it. And then to finish the bracelets off, I'm using this little kit that I got from a seller on Etsy that has all of these bar clasps in it. Again, there's lots of different ways to do it. I thought that these bar clasps were really neat, and I actually really loved using them, and I think that they made it for a really nice finished look at the end of my bracelet. So the first thing that we'll need to do is thread the loom, and since I'm not making anything longer than this area here, I can do it a pretty easy way. There are other ways to do it, but this is just the way I'm going to show you how today. Each of these wooden dowels on the end has a little nail. So the thread is going to be held on by those nails. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one a little bit more that way and then tighten it. Take the thread, wrap it around the nail head here on the end, and tie it in a double knot. After you've tied that knot, take the thread up and over this spring here, and each of the little grooves in the spring is going to be one of the strings. My pattern is 5 beads wide, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means that I need 6 strands across. So it's always one more than the width of your pattern and beads. So I like to start a little bit off center and then just put it through one of the grooves over here, and then put it through a corresponding groove on this side. It doesn't have to be exact, but as close as you can get it. And then come around here and wrap the thread around the nail on this side. Then when you come back up over here, you want to go just one groove over, put the thread through there, and then on this side it should be only one groove over from the previous one. And then again on this side we're going to wrap it around the nail. And continue doing the same thing down through that groove, down through the groove on this side, around the nail. And you want to get it pretty tight. So keep doing that until you have the amount that you need for your pattern. Okay, now I've got all 6 of my strands across there. And I'm gonna snip off a little bit excess here, but still leave some on the end so that I can tie another knot around the nail down here. Make sure that everything is staying nice and tight. I'm gonna wrap that around a couple times and then tie the knot. All right, now these are a little bit looser than I'd like them to be. So if that's the case, you just loosen one of these screws a little bit and then turn the wooden piece and then tighten up the screw. Next, you want to take more of your thread, and I like to take about the length from my hand to my shoulder and then about half that much again for this. Put the thread on your needle and pull it through a few inches. Then take the other end of your thread and tie it on the first string here at the end. You want it to be as close to the springs here as possible. And just leave the little tail here because you can take care of that later. Don't worry about that. Now you want to look at your pattern and you're going to read it from, since we're starting at the bottom string here, we're going to read it from the bottom to the top. So we're going to start with a black bead. So put the black bead on your needle. And then the next is copper, teal, white, black. So just string all of those on your needle and down your thread. Let them fall down the string. And then I like to turn my loom this way. Bring the string underneath these strings here. And then you want to push each of the beads up through the bottom of the gaps in between each of the threads here. If all of my beads were the smaller beads, this would be a little bit easier. But since I've got different sizes going on, especially the first one can be a little bit trickier. So you can see here, I've got all of the beads in between the gaps. You'll have a piece of thread on the outside and then in between each of the beads. You want to take your finger and push up on the back of the beads gently. And then take your needle here and kind of like press it up towards the top of the beads while you're doing it, so that way it goes over the thread that is inside of the beads. Pull that through. Give it just a little bit of a tug. Make sure everything's where it's supposed to. And you've done your first row. So next up on my pattern, I'm reading from left to right now, black, white, copper, teal, black. So thread those on. Bring the needle under the threads here. Use your non-dominant hand to push the beads into the gaps between the threads. Kind of give it a little scoot up and a little tug on the string over here. Push up on those beads. Take your needle, run it through the beads, but push up on it a little bit so it will go over the thread. That's what holds the beads in place. Give that a little tug, and I'm done with my second row. Next row, black, white, white, copper, black. Push the beads through the spaces, scoop them up, give it a little tug, push up on the beads, and run the needle through the beads but over the other threads. Give that a little tug, straighten it out again, and then just continue the pattern like that all the way down till the end. When you run out of thread, you need to tie off the thread that you're using. So make sure that you leave a little bit of excess. And what you'll do is, right now my thread's coming out of this row here. I'm going to go back to this row here, take my needle through those beads again, and then I'm going to continue up, take my needle through these beads here, and then back again through here, and then one more time through here, and then I'm going to bring my needle up through the middle of the beads. That way when you snip off the end, it's not sticking out the back. So that should secure it there. And then just get as close as you can to the beads and snip off that excess thread. To start your new thread, go up about 3 rows, bring your needle from the middle of the beads to the side, and leave about 1 inch or 2 of thread. Go down a row, bring your needle to the right, and then down to the bottom row, back up again, give it a little tug, and if this doesn't start to pull through, then you know it's secure, and then you can go back down to the bottom, and then you're right where you left off, and you can start beading the rest of the bracelet. Once you have finished off the bracelet, you finish the entire pattern, you go ahead and weave the end in just like you did when you were transitioning to a different color. And now for the scary but fun part, I like to loosen one of the sides a little bit, and then you want to go as far down to the bottom here as you can and cut off the strings. Everything should stay, just be careful, you don't want to mess with that too much or the beads might fall off. And then go ahead, lay that down, and do the same with the other side. So I'm going to take 2 of the strings on the right side, you can start on the left, it doesn't matter, and tie a knot. I'm actually going to tie a double knot. And once you tie the knots, it might get a little bit crazy, but do your best to kind of just like push that off to the side, and then take the next 2 and tie those in a knot, and then you'll tie the last 2 in a knot. If you have an odd number of strings, you can tie like 3 together. One side will have 2 strings, the other side will have 1 string. So I forgot to press record, but what I did was I took the 2 that were already tied in a knot here and the 2 that were tied in a knot in the middle, and then treated each of the 2 as one and tied a knot together. So I'll show you again. So these 2 are left. This has only been tied in a knot once. I'm going to take the middle 2, and this might be different depending on how many strings you're using. Sorry if my hands are in the way, this is kind of hard to maneuver. So take the left 2, tie them in a double knot with the middle 2. Just do the best you can, not an exact science. So once you're done, every string should be tied up in at least 2 knots, 2 double knots that is, and just depending on what string you're using, it may or may not be super secure, but we'll take care of that with some glue later. So then go ahead and turn the bracelet around and repeat the process with the other side. Next, you'll want to secure each of the ends, the knots, with some glue, and I like to use E6000. It's a really strong, clear glue. Take just a little bit and put it on some foil, is what I like to use. Close that up. Be careful with this stuff, it's really strong and really strong smelling too. Take a toothpick, dab it in a little bit of the glue, come over to your knots, and then just kind of spread the glue all over the knots. And don't be afraid to get it on those last beads, because those are going to be covered up anyway using this method. Repeat that process on the other side of the bracelet and let it dry completely according to the instructions on the bottle. Once the glue is dry, we need to cut off the excess thread at the end. So cut as close as you can to the knots without cutting through the knots, obviously. And make sure to do that for both ends. The kit that I bought with the bar clasps in them came with lots of different sizes, so depending on how wide the end of your bracelet is, you'll use a different side clasp for the ends. You'll need 2 bars for each bracelet, at least 2 jump rings, and a lobster clasp for the end. Take one of the bars and a pair of flat nose pliers and kind of pry the end of it open just a little bit if it won't fit on the end of your bracelet already as is. You don't want to do it too much, just enough so that it will slide over the end of the bracelet. So the bar is going to be going over that last row of beads on the bracelet and hiding it. Once you're sure you have a good fit, you want to take a little bit of your E6000 glue on a toothpick and spread it around on the inside of the bar. Slide the open end of the bar over the top of the last row of beads on your bracelet. Squeeze it together to make sure you have a good fit, and then add a little bit more glue to the open flap on the end and then close it. Repeat that process for the other side of the bracelet and then let it dry completely. Once your bracelet is completely dry and everything is nice and secure, it's time to add some jump rings. And using jump rings, make sure that you take a couple pair of pliers or your pliers in your hands. You don't want to pull them this way. You want to pull them apart like this, twisting one pair of pliers away from you and one towards you. Get it just barely open enough so that it will fit on the end of your bar clasp, and then go ahead and close it, doing the opposite of what you did to open it. Now on the other end, you'll want to add the jump ring and then also a lobster clasp so that you have something to close it. My kit also came with these other cute bar clasps that are a little bit more decorative, but I decided not to use them because I didn't think they were as secure. But for these ones, you would stick the little bar through the decorative end and use the little loops on the back to attach to the jump rings. So that's definitely an option if you want to go that route instead. Lots of different ways to do these bracelets. And then, like I said, if it ends up being a little bit too short, you can add a second jump ring to the end, or even some kind of chain or something like that to make it so that it is an adjustable size for your wrist. And once you've got the hardware on, you're done, and you've got some super cute beaded bracelets that were really actually a lot of fun to make, and I'm excited to try out making some more different ones with different patterns and different colors and different sizes of beads. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I hope you all are having a great week. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my fun craft ideas, and head over to my blog, cutesy crafts.com, for more fun crafts.